Procrastination is not a rare problem. It is one of the most common patterns in human behavior, and it shows up even when the stakes are real. You can care about the outcome, understand the consequences, and still feel unable to begin. That is what makes it so confusing. It does not feel like choosing rest. It feels like being held back by something you cannot fully explain, as if starting carries more weight than the work itself. And the most important detail is when that resistance appears. It often shows up before you have done anything difficult at all. It arrives at the moment you turn toward the task, which means the source is not the work, but what your brain expects the work will feel like. The simplest explanation is that procrastination happens because people are lazy, undisciplined, or unmotivated. That story is popular because it feels clean. But it does not match what procrastination actually targets in real life. People procrastinate on tasks that are not hard. They delay emails that take minutes. They avoid phone calls that last less than a song. They postpone decisions that are simple but emotionally loaded. They also procrastinate on things they genuinely want. Someone can want to learn a skill, improve their life, or finish a project that matters to them and still avoid the first step for weeks. That is not what laziness looks like. Laziness is often a lack of concern. Procrastination is often the opposite. It is caring enough that the task feels heavy and then feeling resistance anyway. So if effort is not the real trigger must be something else. This is why procrastination creates shame so easily. When the simple explanation is laziness, you turn the behavior into a moral failure. But procrastination behaves less like a character flaw and more like a mechanism that activates under certain conditions. To see that mechanism clearly, you have to zoom in on a narrow slice of time, not the hours lost afterward, and not the distractions that fill the space. The beginning is the instant you face the task and your body reacts. It can be subtle, but it is real. A small rise in tension, a tightening in attention, a faint sense of pressure. Sometimes it is boredom, sometimes uncertainty, sometimes self-doubt. The important part is that this response happens before the work starts. You are not tired from effort yet. You are not overwhelmed by complexity yet. The discomfort arrives early, and it arrives predictably. That is why procrastination often has a strange pattern. You can feel fine for hours, and then the moment you think about the task, something inside you pulls away. The task becomes emotionally present before it becomes physically real. This is the point most explanations skip. They focus on productivity, discipline, or planning, but the first thing that happens is not a schedule problem. It is an emotion problem. At its core, procrastination is not task avoidance. It is emotional avoidance. In the moment you are about to start, your brain is not solving the work. It is trying to reduce the discomfort that starting brings up. Avoidance is extremely effective at doing that. When you shift attention to something easier, the pressure drops. When you check something familiar, the tension eases. Relief arrives quickly, and your brain treats that relief as a reward. This is how procrastination becomes automatic. The brain learns through association. Starting becomes linked to discomfort. Delaying becomes linked to relief. Over time, your mind begins to reach for relief before you have even decided what you want. That is why procrastination can feel like you are watching yourself do it. Part of you knows what needs to happen. Another part reacts as if the priority is to stop the discomfort first and deal with the task later. So what is the brain reacting to if the work has not even started? It is reacting to what the task represents. Tasks are not just actions. They carry meaning, uncertainty, and consequences, and the brain tries to predict how those will feel. If a task contains uncertainty, it can create anxiety. Uncertainty means you cannot fully control the outcome. You do not know how long it will take, how hard it will be, or whether you will succeed, and that prediction alone creates tension. If a task involves evaluation, it can create threat. Evaluation means someone, or even you yourself, will judge the result. The task becomes connected to your image, your competence, or your status, and the brain responds as if failure would be costly. If a task involves identity, the emotional weight can become even heavier. Identity tasks are the ones that feel personal. They are tied to who you believe you are, or who you want to become, which makes the possibility of falling short feel larger than the task itself. This is why procrastination often targets the projects you care about most. Caring increases emotional stakes. Stakes increase predicted discomfort. Predicted discomfort triggers avoidance. The problem is not that you do not value the task, but that you value it enough to feel pressure. This also explains why procrastination is not reserved for hard work. A task can be objectively easy and still cause resistance if it carries an emotion your brain wants to avoid. The emotion, not the effort, is what triggers the loop. A short email can feel heavy if it risks conflict. A simple form can feel heavy if it represents a decision you do not want to commit to. Even cleaning can feel heavy if it forces you to confront how much you have been postponing. In those moments, the task is acting like a doorway. On the other side of the doorway is a feeling you would rather not experience. So your brain stays outside the doorway, even when the actual work would be manageable once you begin. One of the most consistent features of procrastination is that starting feels harder than continuing. Many people can work for hours once they begin, but feel blocked for days before the first step. That pattern is not random. The transition into a task concentrates uncertainty. Before you start, everything is still imagined. The work can go wrong in 1,000 ways, and your brain has no evidence yet that it will be okay. Once you begin, uncertainty collapses into specific steps. This is why the first step often carries the most emotional friction. It is the moment where possibility becomes reality. It is where you commit to a path and where you can no longer delay the question of whether you can actually do it. It also explains why procrastination can vanish after a small entry point. The brain is not designed to dread work. It is designed to avoid uncertain discomfort. The moment action begins, the mind has something concrete to hold onto, and resistance often drops. Avoidance works in the short term, but it creates a cost. The task does not disappear. Deadlines move closer. The sense of pressure increases, and the emotional weight of the task grows each time you return to it. Then a second emotion arrives: guilt. You know you delayed. You know you could have started earlier. Guilt makes the task feel even heavier, which makes the next attempt to start even more uncomfortable. This is why procrastination becomes self-reinforcing. Discomfort triggers avoidance. Avoidance produces relief. Relief fades into pressure and guilt. Pressure and guilt create more discomfort. And the loop becomes stronger than the original task. Over time, the task becomes associated not only with the work itself, but with all the emotions built around it. Stress, shame, self-doubt, and urgency begin to attach to the task, so even looking at it can feel uncomfortable. This loop explains something almost everyone has experienced. Procrastination often collapses near a deadline. It can feel like a switch flips, and suddenly you can do in hours what you avoided for weeks. That is not because discipline suddenly appears. It is because the emotional balance changes. When the deadline is far away, avoidance reduces discomfort. When the deadline is close, avoidance increases discomfort. At some point, not starting feels worse than starting. Action becomes the fastest path to relief. The brain is still following the same rule as before: reduce discomfort quickly. Near a deadline, the quickest relief comes from doing the task. So the deadline does not cure procrastination. It simply changes which option feels emotionally safer. The mechanism remains the same, only the emotional math shifts. This is also why motivation is an unstable solution. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings fluctuate. If you depend on feeling ready, confident, or inspired, then your ability to act becomes dependent on the weather of your internal state. Procrastination is not caused by a lack of strong feelings. It is caused by the presence of uncomfortable ones. So trying to add motivation on top of discomfort often fails, because it does not remove the friction that appears right before starting. In many cases, procrastination survives even when motivation is high. You can be excited about a goal and still avoid the first step. That is because excitement and discomfort can exist at the same time, and the brain will still reach for relief if discomfort wins the moment. There is another layer that makes procrastination more common today. Modern environments are full of immediate relief options. When discomfort appears, there are countless ways to reduce it within seconds. A phone, a message, a video, a feed, a quick search, a small task that feels productive. These alternatives are not just distractions, they are emotional exits. They make it easy to escape discomfort without having to face the task that triggered it. This trains the loop faster. The quicker the relief, the stronger the association. If avoidance reliably reduces discomfort in seconds, the brain learns that pattern deeply. And the habit becomes less a choice and more an automatic response to friction. So why do we procrastinate? Not because we are lazy and not because we are broken. We procrastinate because the brain is built to reduce discomfort quickly, and avoidance is one of the fastest ways to do that. Procrastination exists because relief is immediate, while progress is delayed. The mind takes the fast relief and postpones the slow reward. The result is a pattern that feels irrational, but follows a predictable logic. Once you see that logic, the experience becomes easier to understand. The resistance is not proof you cannot do the task. It is proof the task carries emotional friction, and your brain is trying to remove that friction quickly. And that is why procrastination is so common. It is not a rare failure of discipline. It is a normal system of emotional relief, working exactly as designed, even when it works against the life you are trying to build.